If you feel like you need to play some fresh, turn-based tactical game, I want to tell you about the game Hard West 2, which was released recently. Taking into account the number of games of the genre which released for the last year, in this video I want to focus on those unique mechanics the game implements and whether they work good or not. While this game has number 2 in its name, the first game was developed by another team of developers and had another gameplay pacing due to game mechanics, so if you haven't tried it, you shall not feel uncomfortable by jumping straight into Hard West 2. As for the story, our main protagonist is a guy called Gene Carter. With his crew of outlaws, they decided to rob a train which has the mystical name Ghost Train. Everything was totally good till they get to the train engine, where they met the devil itself. Upon fight with him, the crew finds out that he is invincible, and Gene proposed to Devil to play a game of poker game, to be able to leave that place in case of victory. And as you can understand, it is hard to beat Devil in poker, so Gene and his crew lost their souls, and now they have to get their souls back, and get revenge as well. Let's deep dive into game mechanics. Our crew is a team of different personalities. Through the game in many dialogues, we will be able to pick the side of one of the crew members to increase loyalty with this character. By taking more and more choices, you will unlock few special passive abilities for those characters you like, and also you will get a small additional piece of personal story for such character upon each progression of loyalty level. The main problem here is that as for tactical game, you mostly are focused on those choices that lead to loyalty, to receive necessary passives for your build. And this fact negates the effect of moral choices. I would say King's Bounty 2 is a great link here, because there were many situations where you want to pick some option, but that will lead to worst potential of character build. In my opinion, that moment makes most choices in the game much more formal than emotional, which breaks the atmosphere. And apart from those choices, we can unlock the abilities of crew members by using poker combinations with cards that we find through our journey. That mechanic is pretty interesting, but you get those cards not that fast, so you shall be ready to brainstorm because, for example, if you have Flush and Pair and a bunch of other cards, you will have one character with many passive abilities unlocked, and all other, in fact, shall be ready for hard drive till you get more combinations. And as for one unique active ability, which may be unlocked with cards, I would say that while abilities are interesting and allow to enhance your strategy, but for a tactic of such type, after 5 or maybe 10 hours of the game, you will surely have some standard tactic of use of each ability. So it is pretty sad that they haven't added variability for abilities that each character may use. But let's take a closer look at tactical fights, which are the main part of the game. The killer feature of this game is a mechanic called Bravado. And how does it work? We have a classical turn-based system with 3 action points per team member each turn, but with one important moment. When any crew member kills an enemy, he gets full action points back. If you add to this really many enemies in each encounter, gameplay in fact becomes some form of puzzle, because due to a number of enemies you just have to kill a solid amount of them each turn. And the tricky point here is that within the first 2 hours of gameplay, when a player can refund money for the game, this feature charges the player with courage, because most part of enemies are almost one shot, so you feel like a mastermind player when you kill a huge number of enemies within one turn. And in general, there are many situations in the later game where you can use this feature effectively, and it is cool, but the problem is that enemies become healthier, and each shot from weapons with good damage mostly requires 2 or 3 action points, and doesn't allow to one-shot big percent of enemies. As a result, on pretty small maps we have gaming situations that we need to solve, taking into account missed chances that may ruin even perfect strategy, plus the fact that there is no overwatch feature, so you cannot effectively perform territory control. The gameplay mostly feels like you need to guess or find the optimal strategy that developers created for each map, because in many other events you may just fail the mission. Hopefully developers took into account the feedback of the community, and the latest patch disabled the time limits for most missions on easy and hard difficulty, because previously it made people crazy that you may perform everything pretty good, but at the end of the level you may find out that you need one more turn to finish the mission and you just cannot do it right now. That is the only legit time limit we shall have here. And also they fixed the duration of the bleeding effect, that could leave a character without bandages just useless for C turns due to enemies that spam utilities to cause bleeding. So really big respect to developers that they are listening to the community, but unfortunately I feel that the core game mechanic is just much more stressful than it was expected, and provides in fact much less pleasure. As for the misses system, game feels pretty fair. You can use ricochet from many objects on the map to get a better angle and hit the enemy effectively. Also we have luck, which we get from failed shots, getting damage and in some other situations. And we use this luck to increase chances to hit the enemy, so from the moment when you unlocked some skills on character and added some good accessories which may increase luck gain, you don't really need to worry about hit chances, which are really good. As for the fact that we don't have here overwatch or attack on opportunity, I feel not that great. I understand that this game is really focused more on some crazy moves with bad positioning to be able to kill everyone with bravado in one or few turns. But I feel that for effective positioning and map control, such functions usually only add to the tactical experience. So I wouldn't say it is bad that we don't have them, but the gameplay feels much more like a puzzle and not like tactical positional gameplay. Good to mention here Warhammer 40k Chaos Gate, which was released in May. While the game mostly was focused on melee fights and usually rush strategy was much more viable to win missions, but in hard missions positioning was really important. And with Hard West 2 mechanics, in fact, game as always will be for the player either too easy, if he is, for example, experienced XCOM player, or too stressful if the player is new to the genre, and search for the optimal solution may just take too much time to feel pleasure from the process. As for such things like visuals and narrative, I feel that game is performed decently. The visual style is impressive, colors and fights in general feel fresh and bright. Although the map where we travel and mostly have dialogues, trading and side quests is pretty mediocre, but that is not that important considering most part of our time we will be engaged in fights. To summarize, Hard West 2 may be a good option if you have already finished all new games in the genre and want to engage in the puzzle-style gameplay of this game. In such an event I would recommend to pick high difficulty and just enjoy the process. If you have a backlog of games to play and for example missed Chaos Gate or Expeditions Rome that was released this year, I will recommend to start with those games, they will most likely give a better and more rewarding experience. Hard West feels fresh, but unfortunately wow effect lasts only for a limited period of time. And further, lack of variability will just become game-breaking factor for those people who are not obsessed with the genre. I want to thank everyone who supported my previous videos and I'm really happy that we are almost on 20 subs mark, which is really great. We'll highly ask you to thumb up and comment the video if you enjoyed it, and see you soon in a new game reviews. Bye bye.